Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is caitom and today I am building a tiny little cottage for a retired fisherman. So the inspiration for this build, it came about through a picture I saw on Pinterest, I believe, or Google Images, one of the two, seeing as they are my main sources for inspiration for literally all of my Sims builds. And with the weather getting increasingly warm because it's summer here in Texas, and that means my room is most definitely several degrees warmer than the rest of my house, and that also means that I am constantly in a state of icky warmness. But yeah, that kind of inspired me to sort of vent out my frustrations, I guess you could say, with the lack of cool air that I do not feel currently. And that is why I decided to build this cottage that I assume would be in a warmer climate, maybe along the beach or, along this little bay area because we are building in Brindleton Bay. But yeah, the shape of the house is pretty simple. It is a tier 3 tiny home, by the way, which is why the shell is quite simple. With the little reference picture that I found, it had a really nice front that I knew I could probably incorporate some of the new packs that we got recently. So the new kit windows, the I guess clutter items from Basement Treasures, and I don't know if there's anything I could have used from going together. But yeah, at this point, I've pretty much got the whole shell done, and now I'm just kind of figuring out the little details that I want to add. As you can see, the house is pretty much blue. This siding is actually from Cats and Dogs, which is the same pack that this world that I'm building in comes with. I'm building in Brindleton Bay on the Bedlington Boathouse lot, I believe. It is a 20 by 20, and I think there's already a starter home like pre-built that comes with the world. So of course, if you want to replace that house with a somewhat more expensive home, feel free to do that. It was kind of the closest lot I could find that really suited my vision for the build. There's actually a movie on Netflix that I watched that kind of has what I was sort of looking for, except the house was situated in a swamp or a marsh. I'm not really sure what the difference is yet. I'm sure I'll Google it later, but that sort of biome I don't think is one that we have in The Sims 4, but correct me if I'm wrong. Anyways, right now I'm currently trying to figure out what I want to do with the rest of the lot, as always, and that basically means I'm just trying to figure out how I want to landscape the rest of the area to make this lot feel a bit more full. As I've mentioned before, this is a tier 3 tiny home, so the amount of tiles for the house is around 87, I believe, and compared to the rest of the already small lot, there is plenty of room waiting to be used. And before I forget, I should mention that there was a whole bunch of clipping with the debug rocks and the other landscaping, like debug grass, that realistically would not clip in real life, but we can just pretend that it doesn't bother me because I think it looks really nice from afar. And speaking of debug rocks, I suppose I should mention that most of the landscaping that you're seeing here comes from debug, although I do go back and finish the rest of it towards the end of the build. I think maybe the only real plant or plants that I used were those hydrangea bushes from the base game, and I think one other plant from the Cats and Dogs EP. And to be fair, you can really never go wrong with those. But yeah, I basically used a whole bunch of Cats and Dogs landscaping, a whole bunch of base game landscaping, and the palm trees, I don't know if I mentioned that, but they come from growing together, and I think that's a palm tree I've been trying to use more recently just because of how nice it looks in comparison to the base game palm trees, which are quite skinny and way too tall for it to look normal. And I think these are like the maybe perfect size. I know there's another palm tree, or maybe it's a banana tree, that we have in the base game debug section, and those are nice on occasion, but it's good to have some variety. And as I finish up this part of the landscaping, let me tell you a little bit about the sim I imagine would be living here and kind of my main inspiration. And when I mean main inspiration, I just mean the boat that you see me pull out of the debug catalog. I probably placed a few, I want to say crab trappers because they're made out of wood and they're solid. But yeah, I imagine that the sim living here is an elder sim that has pretty much lived in the Bay Area all of their life. They have one of those "I grew up here, I'll probably die here too" kind of backstories, which would explain why they're able to stay so self-sufficient after all of these years living on their own. And on occasion they take visits from their favorite and only grandchild, who probably grew up closer to the suburbs and not really in the lifestyle that the grandparent grew up in. Anyways, because this is a tier 3 tiny home, the floor plan is pretty much as simple as whatever you're seeing right now. I sectioned off a place for the bedroom, I have a 3-tile bathroom, and then the rest of the space I'm just making it a sort of open floor plan for a kitchen, a dining area, and a living room. And surprisingly for this build, I ended up using a lot of cottage living, but to be fair, I think it is the flooring that is labeled seaside cottage, so that kind of influenced my decision to sort of center this around someone who likes to be near the sea. Maybe they were like a captain of a much fancier boat than the one that's, you know, currently outside of the house. But you know, like I said, they have since retired their seafaring days and now they live a quiet life, listening to the sounds of the waves, you know, crash along the shore and all that. But yeah, along with cottage living, I of course used a lot of cats and dogs items, of course, because, you know, if I'm building in Brindleton Bay, of course I'm going to use a whole bunch of items from the same pack. And before I forget, if you want to download this build, you can find it on the gallery under my ID caitom, CAITOM, or you can download tray files down below, and all of that and more will be linked as well. And I have since playtested this lot. All I can say or ask really is why my sim continue to prepare food on the counter with the sink rather than the very empty counter I placed beside the stove, which you will see in the near future. I tested it with different sinks and the sim continued to use the not empty counter, so I assume it's just a simple weird bug, nothing too game breaking, I believe, just a weird one. And there may or may not also be gourmet fruitcake underneath the overhang of a roof. Listen, I don't know why there are so many random slots on the very much closed glass windows, doors, and I guess roofs in this case. I'm just trying to make pretty builds and make sure they function. But yeah, if you guys have experienced any of those mishaps in your game, do let me know because The Sims can be very odd at times, and I think I heard that a new patch is coming soon, so we can expect more odd bugs in our very near future. But back to the build. So the interior colors have changed since I first started burnishing. I wanted to continue the blues and reds from the outside, but after deciding on this particular swatch of the wallpaper and the dining table, it felt like I needed to do something different, and in the end I chose a green and yellow color scheme, which, looking back at it now, aren't really sea colors, but we can also ignore that bit. And to be fair, I wanted to use the light blue swatch with the lighter wood swatch of the cottage living counters. But you know, like I said, things changed when I picked wallpaper, and so we just went for a different plan. So the rest of the build largely consists of me cluttering up very small sections of the house, since I've got most of the main furniture down anyways. I wanted to make this feel like the sim has gathered a whole bunch of knickknacks over time, as well as hint into what else they enjoy other than fishing / sailing, and it also gave me a reason to include some other clutter items that I wouldn't normally use very often. Exhibit A, that little salt lamp from the Pastel pop kit. I don't know if I've used it before in any of my builds since I purchased the pack, but I thought it'd be nice to, I guess, reference the saltiness of the sea and just have a big salt lamp right on the console table. And yeah, the rest of the clutter is honestly kind of basic. I didn't know if there was any rhyme or reason as to what sort of items I picked. I just thought, yeah, it looks like something this sim would have, just for fun, maybe. I mean, I would imagine that this sim is a little playful. You know, they have very lively decor on the inside, and I guess when you live alone for so long, you might want to be a bit more playful. But you know, I'm just kind of making stuff up. And yeah, this little corner that I am placing down a bunch of books by was the start of an idea of me cluttering this house to the absolute fullest, but of course I don't do that. I just kind of placed a whole bunch of books down. I don't really know what kind of books they would have. I mean, maybe it would be about fish, fish bait, just like anything about their local area, any local specialties, but they don't really have a bookcase, so they just kind of leave it on the ground. Because what's a better place to store things than the floor? I mean, what's the use in having so much space if you're not going to use it, right? Right. But yeah, over here is the little living room that I have decided to include a small little beat up TV from the new Basement Treasures kit. That honestly played very well into today's build. I feel like I could have done more with the interior by making it seem a little bit more weathered, but I really like how the wallpaper looks without any moldy stains or wet stains, so we'll just keep it at that. And as for clutter, like I said, there's no rhyme or reason. I put down whatever I thought I could fit, and I hopefully made it seem a little realistic, because I don't know how you guys organize your own clutter, but usually for me, I just kind of place it wherever it fits, kind of like how this sim is placing whatever they can wherever they can. And yeah, as for the wall decorations, I didn't really put that much effort into it. I knew I wanted to have some mounted fish, like maybe this is a rare fish that they don't usually see often wherever Brindleton Bay is based off of. And you know, they're like proud of their catch or something. And I also included a ship's steering wheel. You know, it's very nautical, very sea vibes or something. I don't know. I just thought it was kind of cute to include that on the wall. As like, you know, to further push the idea that this sim is very into sea stuff and like sea life and all that. And speaking of sea life, I actually grabbed some debug fishing poles from the debug catalog, of course, and rotated them against the wall with tool mod. I attempted putting them near the boat, but I thought it would make more sense to have it indoors rather than outdoors. And I know I used a child's fishing pool, but I just want to think that maybe they're just waiting for their grandchild to have a kid of their own to pass it on like a family heirloom of sorts. I suppose this is where they begin their legacy as a memorable angler. And right as I finish cluttering up the living room, we can finally move on to the bedroom. So the bedroom is pretty simple. It is, you know, well, I was able to fit a double bed pushed up against the wall, of course, a desk with a functioning computer, and I think that's pretty much it. I don't remember if I added any other hobby items or if I left most of those to the outside, but I think it's just a bed and computer and then some other minimal clutter. And of course, I couldn't forget the pet bowl so they could have their own pet fish. I don't know if when you upload these houses to the gallery with a fish already inside the bowl, if that also gets uploaded, but you know, it doesn't really matter because I didn't even name the fish. I just needed to see if it still worked wherever I placed it, which was at the foot of the bed, of course on top of a wardrobe, not on the floor. But yeah, so on the desk you saw me place a couple of trophy items from the Basement Treasures kit, and my thinking was that the sim competed in many fishing competitions back in the day, and of course they're gonna be proud about it. And I think they're more meant to resemble sports trophies, like the typical shape you see in other movies, but I thought it could still work for this situation. And I think on a different wall I also ended up including some farming competition ribbons from Cottage living. So besides this sim being a master at angling, if that's the right word, they're also a master at farming, which I hope it makes sense because I included one functional planter box in the backyard. Of course you can add more, there's plenty of space, but I thought it'd be nice to have some variety, so I ended up sizing one down, but y'all see all of that in due time. Now we are finally decorating the last room of the build, which is this small screened-in porch. I feel like this would be so nice to have, especially if you have a nice lounge chair. And you know, being by the water, having great sunlight and, you know, really good weather, I feel like it is very valuable to have. And you know, sometimes you just need a day to just sit down and relax and just watch life pass by as you cater to your plants, you know? And that's honestly what I imagine the sim does here. And you know, the sunroom itself wasn't that large, so we passed by it pretty quickly, and we are now working on the rest of the exterior. So I replaced the fence with this debug fence from Werewolves, and I just kind of replaced it all around to give this the weathered feel that I didn't think that I wanted, and I thought it looked nicer than having a very picture perfect white picket fence, but yeah, that's just my opinion. But besides adding, like I said, the planters, a table, and a light telescope, we are pretty much done with the build. As always, thank you all so much for watching. If you have enjoyed today's video and would like to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out the Discord if you haven't already. Of course, if you want to download the slot, it'll be on the gallery under my ID caitom. Thank you again for chatting with me, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.